Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single week on this channel where we just geek out about comic books. Although, today might be an exception. Geek out seems to imply that we're happy about, and we're having fun, and it's just a good time. Today, a very big issue of a series that I have not been loving so far came out. And I feel like I need to talk about. But for an open and honest and serious discussion like this, I don't really feel like a setting surrounded by toys is the appropriate place to do it, so follow me. That's better. Welcome to the Old Thinking Couch. Yes, for anybody who is a fan of this channel, you know that when I do the Post Geek Out Reaction, which is a show I have on this channel where I just give you my open, honest thoughts about a movie or television series that I just watched, I like to come out here to the Thinking Couch because it just feels more personal to me. It doesn't feel like I'm standing up there trying to give you a big presentation. It feels like this is a good place for me to just give you my open, honest thoughts as they come to me. And I came out here when I talked about Civil War II issue number 3, the issue where Hawkeye killed the Hulk, because that was an issue that just broke me. I don't mean it like I broke down like, no, why did they do this to the Hulk? That was the issue that made me look at all of Civil War II and go, this is just stupid, and I don't care about it anymore. You are just destroying this universe. That is what the entire point of Civil War II is. And that's why I kind of had to come out here for that issue and just give you my honest feelings about it. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do any more of those. I'm going to wait until all of Civil War II is done. And then I will do a big wrap-up episode. Marvel had other plans. Because today, after months of delays, Civil War II issue number 5 came out. And let me just say, I do not blame anybody at Marvel for the delays. This was delayed because the artist, David Marquez, I believe his name is. If it's not, I will write it down here. It was delayed because he had a kid, and it's like, that's a perfectly reasonable explanation for why a book will be delayed. That is definitely far more important. But because it was delayed, and because the last issue ended with the two teams finally formed and about to go at each other, this was the one that everybody was waiting for. It's like, okay, this is when everything starts. It's all been building up to this. Let's go, let's do it. So people have been waiting forever for this. And the majority of the issue is just a fight. It is a big fight between the characters, and I'll talk about how I feel about that in a moment. But the end of the issue, there is a big reveal. And that big reveal, as I said, issue number 3 is the one that made me go, I don't care about this anymore. But I can still fully understand other people reading it and being deeply invested and really caring about what's going on. I was not trying to come in here and judge other people for still enjoying it, not at all. But the big reveal at the end of this one is the one that made me go, this doesn't even make sense. This to me was the issue where they shot themselves in the foot, because I can no longer look at this and like see two sides. The whole point of Civil War II, the same as with the first Civil War, is to ask, whose side are you on? And in the first Civil War, they did a really bad job at it, because Iron Man was a straight up villain in Civil War I. Because in that one, ironically, I actually was kind of on his side, because it's like, hey man, if you have the power to blow up a building just by pointing at it, maybe you should go and get special training for this and have someone go, yeah, okay, you are allowed to use that power because we have tested you to the point in which we can understand that you know how to use it. Here's your ID. And also, it might be a good idea for some of these costumed heroes to have some kind of an ID that will allow them to go to the police and go, I caught this guy robbing a bank, I'm turning him in, here's my ID, and they go, oh, okay, we understand, rather than just webbing them up and leaving them in front of a police station so that when the cops come out, they go, we don't know what this guy did, we have no evidence to really convict him of anything, we kind of have to just let him go. That's one of the reasons why there are so many criminals that just get defeated and then are instantly back on the street. So I was like, yeah, I actually think Tony has a good idea here, Problem is, every single thing that he did was just mind-bogglingly sinister. Like creating a secret prison to hold all these superpowered individuals in the negative zone. It's like, how am I supposed to root for you? These are your friends and you're just locking them up. That was just the tip of the iceberg of all the really a-hole-ish things that he did throughout that series that just made it really hard to be on his side. But as I said, when you look at his core argument, you can at least look at like, yeah, okay, I can kind of understand this. You know, even if you disagreed with what he was doing, you could come in and say, well, let's just not do that thing. And then the rest of this plan actually kind of works. There wasn't actually an argument to be had. Now, I'm not going to sum up all my feelings about this whole Iron Man versus Captain Marvel thing going on in this one, because I've talked about it in previous issues. But Captain Marvel's whole argument throughout all this is that you need to use this Inhuman who has the ability to see the future. We need to use him to stop crimes before they happen. And in the last issue, issue 4, which I actually thought was an okay issue. I've had problems throughout this entire series, but issue 4 I thought was okay because that was an issue where they actually sat down and talked to each other. And I've been saying from the start, this is not like the first Civil War where the authorities were coming to you and saying, hey, register or go to jail. That's something that you have to actually fight. That's something where fists actually will fly. This one is just a big debate. That's all that it is. The only reason why it's actually leading to fisticuffs is because of the incompetence that's been going into actually executing any of these plans. It's going into how much you're screwing up every single time that you try to stop one of these negative things from happening. This whole discussion of should we use this Inhuman to stop future events, it's a debate. It is not something that should require people to fight each other unless someone is misusing that power. And that's what really got established to me in the previous issue. When Iron Man goes, here's how his powers work. His powers work by taking all the information that is out there in the world and then using it to kind of construct the most likely scenario of what could happen. That doesn't mean that it actually will happen, and the more he does this, the less likely these predictions are to happen. Every time that he makes a prediction, it starts to break down, and sorry, I'm getting choked up over all this. And then Captain Marvel basically just goes, so? That was basically her response. Basically she said, all right, what's the percentage of these things happening? And he goes, well, what if it gets to this? What if it gets to this? What if it gets to this? And finally he goes like, what if it gets to 10%? And she goes, if you tell me there's a 10% chance that Thanos is going to show up and destroy the world, I'm going to take it. I'm going to prepare for that. And I just wanted to scream out, that's not what we're discussing. If you tell me that there's a 10% chance that Thanos shows up at this exact spot at this exact time, yeah, get all the heroes there. Have them all show up and just stand there ready for it to happen. Because if Thanos doesn't show up, you know what happens? Nothing. Everybody just goes, oh, so he's not coming? Tell you what, let's wait another half hour, see if he shows up. Nope, didn't show up. All right, go team, yeah. Who wants to go to the bar? All right, drinks are on me. That's it. That's what happens if Thanos doesn't show up. This is a question of what if someone you're going to accuse of murdering someone doesn't actually murder that person, and your solution is not to go to that person and go, hey, okay, so we have this prediction that you might do something. We're just going to investigate a little bit, and basically, if nothing happens, fine. But her solution is, if someone has a prediction of this happening, instantly put them in jail. Instantly hold them accountable for this prediction as if it had already happened, and that's the big problem with her plan. Again, 10% chance that some evil space overlord shows up to destroy the planet, yeah, go ahead and prepare for that. However, 10% chance that someone is going to rob a convenience store, you're just going to go ahead and arrest that person even though there's a 90% chance that they were not going to do that? How am I supposed to root for your side when that's your argument? And this was the issue where I looked at and said, I cannot understand anyone being on Carol's side at this point. Because you could still come in here and say, well, I bet that's what was going to happen. Like for me, it was when the Hulk got shot in the head, because I was like, we know over in Totally Awesome Hulk that Amadeus Cho cured Bruce Banner. So to me, this whole vision of him turning back into the Hulk doesn't make sense. And Clint Barton keeps saying, no, I saw that quick glimmer of green in his eye. And a lot of people are like, well, okay, so that means that he definitely was going to turn into him. But again, you read over in Totally Awesome Hulk, Banner was cured. He was 100% cured. In fact, we even saw him getting tested to make sure he was cured. We saw him going through trials to make sure that he was actually cured. We saw him really pushing himself, and yeah, he never once turned into the Hulk. So then all of a sudden, Bendis comes in, says this whole time he's secretly been the one who cured himself when we know it was Amadeus Cho who cured him. And then you're supposed to tell me that, oh no, he actually was about to turn to the Hulk. I was like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. Amadeus Cho, the Totally Awesome Hulk, he cured him. He was not about to turn into the Hulk. Hawkeye shot him in the head. But I can still understand other people out there saying, well, you know, maybe he didn't. I guess that was, you know, a possibility of him turning back in. Maybe this actually was going to happen. Let's go ahead and get into what the spoiler is. I've been trying not to say it, but at the end of this issue, Ulysses has another vision, and that vision shows Miles Morales killing Captain America. This is the moment in which I cannot understand people being on Carol's side, because, okay, maybe, just maybe, Amadeus Cho didn't actually cure the Hulk. Maybe Bruce actually was secretly experimenting on himself the entire time. Maybe he was actually about to turn back into the Hulk. All of us know Miles Morales. We know he would not kill Captain America. All of us, as comic book fans, understand Miles Morales would have no reason to kill Steve Rogers, but we also understand, just as intelligent adults who know how the comic book industry work, we all know that over in the Steve Rogers Captain America comic, there is a storyline being written by Nick Spencer involving Steve Rogers being a secret agent of Hydra, and that storyline is supposed to go on for years. We know that that is not going to just suddenly stop halfway through the storyline so Miles can come in and kill Steve Rogers. Nobody out there thinks for a second Miles is actually going to do this, and yet as soon as the vision is over with, rather than looking around going, okay, I know this kid, I know there's no reason he would do that, maybe we should start questioning why Ulysses is having these visions. We should start questioning how accurate they are. Instead, Carol's first response is, you're under arrest. That was the moment in which not only did I look at this and go, clearly that vision is not working, clearly your entire argument has no base anymore, but also I just looked at her and went, you're just a jerk. You are just a monster at this point. If you get a vague vision of something that nobody believes is actually going to happen, and you're still going to arrest this kid for it. And that to me is the most frustrating thing about all of Civil War II. It's not just that it's coming in here and killing characters or getting characters to fight each other. It's that it's destroying characters. I do not mean killing them off because you can always bring them back. I mean, it is taking these characters that we love, that we have attachments to, that mean something to us, and just wrecking who they are. I mentioned this in issue 3 when Hawkeye shot Bruce Banner in the head on his own front yard before he even turned into the Hulk. I looked at that and went, okay, Hawkeye never killed, and also he was always the guy who spoke truth to power. He was always the guy when people came in here and said, this is what's going to happen, it's terrible, and we have to do the worst thing possible to stop it. Hawkeye was always the guy who went, that's BS, there's a better way around this. We're Avengers, damn it, we're going to figure out a way to fix this. So him just shooting Banner in the head because he saw a glint of green in his eye, even if Banner asked him to do that, that is not Hawkeye. But that is something that is now going to forever define Hawkeye. That is something that's going to stick with him for years. For years, he will be the guy who killed Bruce Banner and shot him in the head. Didn't kill the Hulk. Didn't kill the Hulk when he was raging around and fighting the Avengers and he had to save lives and it was the only option at the time. Shot Bruce Banner, the human who had been cured, in the head. And now, this was the issue that did it for Carol. This is the issue when I look at Carol and go, you are just locking people up for no reason. You are putting people in jail who have not broken any laws, and now these are people who we know would not actually break these laws. As I said, just to repeat myself, nobody believes that's going to happen. Nobody believes Miles Morales is going to kill Steve Rogers. I mean, first off, even if it was a result of this whole Civil War II thing, of the heroes fighting, Miles and Steve are on the same side. And by the way, quick side note, I just have to bring this up. I'm going to cover this a bit more later on. I'm going to have an editorials, which is the just opinion piece show that I have here, on why Civil War II just doesn't work. But one of the things that really just doesn't work for me is who picks what side. None of these sides make sense to me. I mean, in this issue, we finally saw the sides. We finally saw who is on what side. And half these characters, I was like, you haven't even been involved in this. I don't even know why you're picking these sides. Like, why on earth are the all-new X-Men there? I mean, I can understand them being on Tony's side because their whole thing is, no, we do not accept the future that we've been given and we're going to change it. So I understand them being there, but we haven't seen any discussion with them. They just popped up in this issue out of nowhere. But then there are other people in here who, I'm sorry, it makes no sense the side that they've chosen. On that big 2-page spread of the two teams running at each other, you see Old Man Logan there on Tony's side. Old Man Logan is a Wolverine from an alternate future where all the villains rose up and killed all the heroes, and that Wolverine got brought back in time, and the moment he got back in time, the first thing he did is write down a list of all the villains who helped to destroy the world, and he said, I'm going to go around and kill all these villains to make sure that evil, horrible future I came from never happens. Why in God's name is he on Tony's side? The side of the guy who says, yeah, we really should not use someone who can predict the future to stop evil futures from happening. And just to give you another example, we see that the Vision is on Tony's side in this. But if you've been reading the current Avengers series, the Vision was recently taken over by Kang the Conqueror, and after he broke free of his control, he decided, I am going to find where Kang the Conqueror was born so I can basically stop him from ever coming into existence, so that way I can prevent all the horrible stuff he's done. In other words, we have just seen the Vision is totally on Carol's side. He's totally in favor of stopping evil things from happening before they happen. I could keep going down the list, but I just want to get a couple of those out there because this has been bugging me from day one. It's that nobody really makes sense why they're on what side. I mean, in fact, if you even go back and look at some of the earliest promotional art for this and it shows everybody on their respective sides, many of those people aren't actually on that side. It almost seems like when they started this thing, they really did not know who would be on what side. It seems like they decided it as they went along. I mean, heck, I haven't talked about this yet, but the fact that Brian Michael Bendis came in and said it's now going to be 8 issues because I thought of a better ending makes me go, so you didn't actually fully have this planned out when you started writing it? Because you really should have had the best ending possible before you go, let's destroy the Marvel Universe. But yeah, it is really bugging me that nobody really makes sense what side they're on. And if you look back at the first Civil War, everybody had a tie-in issue that allowed them to stand up and go, this is why I'm on this side. This is why I support this cause, or this is why I'm opposed to this cause. You don't really get that this time. I mean, have you guys been reading most of the Civil War II tie-ins? Almost none of them actually tie into Civil War II. It's a scam. I'm going to call it right now. Most of the Civil War II tie-ins that I've read have like one page where the characters go, oh, by the way, have you heard about what's going on with Carol and Tony? That's weird, isn't it? And then that's it. It really feels like Marvel is forcing these books to be Civil War II tie-ins, not because they think that it actually makes for a better story, but because they think that will be a cash grab, which is kind of obvious, but at least in the first Civil War, the writers were like, okay, we'll figure out a way to tie into this. This one, it seems like the writers are just like, no man, I had a story. I had something planned. I'm not going to interrupt this for your big crossover BS. And the biggest irony of this is, I don't think it's actually helping their sales. And the example I have for that is that when the new Captain Marvel book began, she was going to be the boss of Alpha Flight, which is Earth's #1 defense against threats from space. She's basically the boss of space, and people were excited. And you had this great creative team going into it. People could not wait to read that. That book sold very well at my store. The first story arc sold very well. The trade sold very well. However, her Civil War II tie-ins have not been selling. And this isn't some minor character. This is the leader of one of the two sides in this giant war of heroes. People have not been checking out her tie-ins. And the reason why is because, A, as I said, the biggest problem with Civil War II is that they are destroying these characters. They're making these characters that we love, that we felt such an attachment to. Captain Marvel is one of those characters who meant something to an entire generation of readers. We all remember the Carol Corps. We all remember that big showing of support from this massive fan base for this character. And yet, they have turned her into something that people can't root for anymore. They've turned her into something that people don't want to read about anymore. Once a month, I go through the back issues at my store to restock any of the issues that we've started to run low on. When I got to C, and I went through the Captain Marvels, I went, this is the exact same count that we had last month. In the last month, no one has bought any of her books. That is crazy to me, that in a month, no one at my store said, you know what? This is a character that has a massive fan base. I really want to know why she has decided it's a good idea to lock people up in prison before they commit crimes. Because you have taken this character who was so beloved and turned her into something people can't root for. And in this issue, issue number 5, this was the issue in which you can't even look at her argument and believe it anymore. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to try and leave off on something kind of positive here and say that honestly, looking at this, it's not being written that incompetently, at least not compared to what I was afraid it was going to be, because I've read way worse stuff from Brian Michael Bendis. But reading this, if this was an alternate reality story, like if this was all like an 8-issue long alternate reality series, it actually wouldn't be that bad. Because in an alternate reality story, you're okay with seeing these characters act differently. You're okay with seeing these characters basically destroy everything that's been built up over the course of the last decade, because it doesn't affect anything. It's just a big what if. It's a, hey, what would happen if everybody was giant jerks to each other and these characters actually fought and it all just crumbled down? And also, I mean, you could look at that and go, oh, well, maybe Miles is going to kill Captain America in this universe because, hey, that's not actual Miles and that's not actual Captain America. Their books will go on completely fine and unaffected by this. But because it's canon, we know it's not happening and we don't care. We don't care that Miles might kill Captain America because we know it's not going to happen. We don't care that Captain Marvel might lock up Miles Morales because we know that's not going to happen. We already know the outcome of all these things that you're teasing. The only things that we don't know is how much this is going to wreck these characters. How much are we going to dislike Captain Marvel by the end of this series? How much is the relationship between all these characters going to be just torn apart by the end of this series? And no one wants any of that. No one wants to see these characters hate each other. No one wants to see these characters who we loved turn into characters we can't stand to read about. All of Civil War II has been about destroying these characters. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that you can't come in here and just wreck these characters and wreck things that you have established. But look at the first Civil War. It did basically the exact same thing, but the reason why it succeeded is because it was wrecking things that had been built up over the course of decades. This one is wrecking things that have been built up ever since the end of Secret Wars, which was, what, a year ago at this point? Yeah, the stakes are not that high. We're still riding that, oh, I like these characters train, and now you're just instantly destroying it all before we actually hit any kind of a peak, before we can actually even out. It's too early to come in here and try and just wreck this stuff. You're still establishing these characters. You're still establishing their relationships with each other. I mean, at the end of this, when Miles sees that possible future and Kamala runs up to him, they've been trying to, hint at some kind of a relationship between these characters. That would have meant way more if we had had years of building this up between them. Instead, it's just, oh, hey, her friend is sad now because this thing that we all know will not happen will not happen. As I said, nobody thinks that this is actually going to happen. Instead, it's just going to come in here and hinder these books. It's going to come in here and hinder the Miles Morales book. It's not going to push that book forward. It's just going to slow it down. The stuff that was happening in that book before Civil War II started was far more interesting than what's been going on in there because they have to tie into Civil War II. You know what would have made a far better glimpse of the future? A far better vision for Ulysses to have had? I thought about this and I realized the best possible vision for him to have had. You know how in Captain America, as I mentioned, Steve Rogers right now has a storyline going on where he's been brainwashed to believe that he is a Hydra agent and he's trying to rise up and take over Hydra? A far better vision would have been a vision of Captain America as Steve Rogers holding the Hydra flag saying "Hail Hydra." Because when that vision ended, we, the comic book fans, know that's something that's going to happen. That's something that's actually going to happen. That's what's building up. However, all the characters in that universe would have gone, did we just see Captain America as a Hydra agent? That's not going to happen. We know, okay, we had doubts about these visions right now, but yeah, that pretty much proves it. There's no way this is happening. And then Captain Marvel would have had to have backed off a little and gone, let's actually question these visions because, yeah, there's no way that actually happened. So what actually is the accuracy of this? And they would have started to question Ulysses a bit more. But we as the comic book fans would have gone, no. Ulysses is actually right. He's actually having accurate visions of the future. This would have been a great conflict for the readers to have with the characters. But then you also would have had characters in that book who would have been like, no, I actually believe the Ulysses vision. And they actually would have started to question Captain America. And then that would have built up the Captain America book because then you would have had him going, okay, now people are suspicious. I have to start working faster. I have to actually start being smarter about this plan. It would have made him actually have to work on his plan even harder to take over Hydra, rather than it just being some side thing happening over here while Civil War II is happening over here. The two stories would have then built each other up together. If you had had a vision like that, then you would have had a reason for both of these teams to stop fighting in the next issue because they would have each gone to their separate corners, because Carol would have had to have gone, okay, maybe Ulysses' visions aren't always perfect, but we're going to work with him. We're going to keep training him until his visions are 100% correct. And Iron Man would have gone, yeah, okay, we have to make sure that doesn't happen. We have to make sure that she does not go back out there and keep trying to control the future. And we'll give them each time to plan, each time to continue debating each other. And then it would have been able to amp up into another big final blowout at the end in which everything gets resolved. They didn't do that. Instead, we're just going to have Miles being hunted down and almost arrested, even though, as I have said repeatedly, we know he is not going to kill Captain America, and we know he never would kill Captain America. All that Civil War II is really doing is interrupting what we had already been reading, and honestly, what we had already been reading is far more interesting than this. And just to prove my point, think about the fact that Iron Man is the other leader of the major side in this conflict. What's everybody talking about in Iron Man? Is it his stance during Civil War II? No. It's Riri Williams. It's the next Iron Man coming up. It's this protege he's been building up. And we have had very little time to get to know her, but we want to get to know her because this is an exciting idea. However, that's being interrupted by Civil War II. No one cares about Civil War II. They care about this, and it's being interrupted by that. And this is the way that Marvel has operated for the past decade because no one has stopped them. Marvel does this, they come in here and they basically go, we might destroy everything that you love and you need to buy this book if you want to find out how we're going to do it. And when they present you with that, what other option do you have? There wasn't really anything out there that was a threat to Marvel. There wasn't really anything else out there that people were interested in reading. But here's the thing. This isn't a decade ago. This isn't 5 years ago. Today, Marvel has competition. Rebirth is killing it. I have been stunned at how good the Rebirth books have been. I mean, I can only name like a handful of them that I haven't really enjoyed. I'm still reading so many of those books. And the thing is, so are all my customers. So are all comic book fans out there. It is shocking to me that just 6 months ago, people were saying, yeah, I think DC might be done. I cannot imagine DC coming back from all the bad press it's had and the low sales that it's had, and Marvel has just been dominating with one great book after another. And within the course of just a few months, with Civil War II being so bad and being forced into every corner of their universe, and Rebirth being so great, it's almost like that episode of Futurama where they went up against the Harlem Globetrotters, and the Globetrotters were down by 50 points with 2 minutes left on the clock. Then Fry goes in there, and then it just flashes forward by 2 minutes, and they're instantly 100 points ahead. That's basically what this was.
Who cares? We're 35 points ahead with 2 minutes left. What could possibly...
That's basically what this was. It was Marvel coming in there with a massive lead and going, this is gonna be it. This is gonna be the nail in DC's coffin. Wait until you check out Civil War II. We're gonna do that thing that we've done that's always worked for us, where we basically destroy everything that we've been building. And then DC came in here and said, hey, what if we don't destroy? What if we create? Think about the most iconic images from Civil War II and from Rebirth. Civil War II, it's probably Hawkeye shooting the Hulk in the head and then holding his arms out, ready to go to jail, ready to surrender with tears coming down his face. Nobody wants to read that. Nobody wants to see their hero murder another hero. Or it could be the image from this week, where you see Spider-Man possibly murdering Captain America. Nobody wants to see that happen. But what's the most iconic image of Rebirth? It's Barry Allen hugging Wally West. Nobody out there did not get a tear in their eye when they saw that, because that was creating something. That was building this universe. It was making these characters who we wanted to read. It was bringing back all that stuff that we loved about every single corner of this universe and going, that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to make these characters the characters that you love again. Whereas Civil War II has been nothing but, let's make these characters so unforgivable you don't want to read about them anymore. This has been what Marvel has had coming for a long time, and I'm going to be very interested in seeing what happens to Marvel after Civil War II, because if Rebirth continues to be so amazing, this might not go back their way. I mean, the sales on Rebirth are starting to even out, and they're evening out above Marvel with Civil War II going on. Civil War II should be the #1 book out there. It should be the biggest event going on. It should be that book that everyone is going out there to read, and it puts Marvel at the top of the charts. Instead, everybody's going out there to read DC. And they should, because it's amazing. It's what comic books should be. And honestly, yeah, I hope that Marvel takes note of this. I hope that they learn. I hope that they realize this is when we finally went too far. This is when we pushed the giant crossovers that just wrecked these universes too far. And it's time that we backed away and just told stories again. Didn't worry about gimmicks. Didn't worry about giant crossovers that will change everything forever. We have characters that people love. We have characters that people want to read about. It's time to go back to telling their stories and allowing them to tell stories that last for more than one story arc. Well, that was an episode. Yeah, sorry for being so serious and such a downer on today's episode. I know that comic class tends to be a lot more uplifting and positive, but when issue number 3 of Civil War II came out, I did an episode just like this in which I decided, let me just be open and honest with you guys about how I feel about this. And you guys seem to respond pretty positively to it. So I thought, you know what, if I'm feeling kind of the same way with this issue, there's a lot of stuff I gotta get off my chest, maybe I should do it again. So let me know how you felt about today's episode. Also, if you want to see next week's episode of Comic Class, which I promise you is going to be way more uplifting. I don't know what it's going to be about. Maybe it'll be about that Monsters Unleashed thing Marvel is doing. Just superheroes punching giant dragon creatures? That sounds fun. That sounds uplifting. So maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows? But if you want to see that or any of the other shows that we do on this channel, because remember we do have other shows such as Game Room and the Thorgy Reviews where we just cover everything from the world of geekery, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support this channel, the easiest way to do that is just to share it around the web and give us a thumb up. That makes it a lot easier for people to find us. But for now, I'm just going to say thanks for watching, everybody. Come back next time. Bye.